Hi there, I'm Kathy Barker from Software Solutions, and I want to have a look at Microsoft Teams, and I particularly want to have a look at the meeting side of Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is capable of a lot more than just meetings, but meetings is probably one of the most important components of Microsoft Teams. Okay, so let's get started. I want to start with the things you must know when you attend a meeting. So I'm currently in a staff meeting, and I can see that at the top here. And besides myself, there are 3 other people in attendance. These 3 people, you can see from this little symbol here, have got their microphones all turned off. And they've actually got their cameras off, and that's why there's just a caricature of each person. So that brings me to my first point. If you're not the meeting organizer or co-organizer in a meeting, you should actually have your microphones turned off. How you turn your microphones off is by using this little button up here called mic. If I click it, the microphone's off, and now the microphone's on. By turning your microphone off, it means that others don't hear when you cough, sneeze, even go and you'll notice also in a meeting that sometimes whoever the speaker is gets a glowing border, and so it's very disorientating the more people you have if everybody has their microphone on, and it's a little bit like a disco. So definitely turn your microphone off. Now there is a shortcut key. It's Control-Shift-M for microphone. Control-Shift-M will turn your mic off and will turn your mic on. But always just check up here as well, and you can tell visually if it's on or if it's off. If you then do want to speak or you have a question, what's considered good protocol is to raise your hand. And so what we have here is a button called raise, and you can see the shortcut key is Control-Shift-K. Control-Shift-K will raise and lower your hand. So if the speaker is speaking, rather than interrupt them, what you do is you raise your hand. Everybody in the meeting will see that your hand is raised and that you have a question. And when it's the most appropriate time, the meeting organizer will ask you what your question is. At that point, you would turn your mic on. You would say what it is that you wanted to discuss. Then you would turn your mic off and you would lower your hand because you're finished with asking your question. So think about that as well. If you have a question, it's very disorientating. The more people that you have in a meeting, the less the conversation flows, and the more difficult it is for those people in that meeting to follow what's going on. Let the meeting organizer talk, and if you have a question, raise your hand and not interrupt the speaker. If you would rather write your question, then that's when you move towards the button Chat. If you click the Chat button, all members of a meeting should actually have the Chat button on as soon as the meeting starts, because what this does is bring up the meeting chat panel on the right hand side. And then if you have a question, again, rather than interrupting the speaker, you can simply type your question. And when you press this button, send, your question will appear in the panel. The speaker will see it. In fact, all members will see it if they have their chat panel up. What might happen is rather than the speaker answer the question, somebody else in the room may have the answer. And so they can type a message in response to your question. And that would save interrupting the flow of the meeting entirely. So definitely raise your hand if you want to verbally ask a question or type your question in the meeting chat. Others may also just rest on your comment and like it because they agree, or they love it because they think it's a brilliant idea. Or if you're being funny, they might laugh, or they may be really surprised as to what you have to say. So you can actually have a reaction from others in the meeting to your comments. If you want to have a reaction not to something that's mentioned in the chat panel, but just something that was said by somebody in the meeting verbally, there is a react button. And so often I'll ask my students to give me the thumbs up. And so they'll all send a reaction, which is a thumbs up. And that means that they all understand, or that they're all okay out there with what we're talking about. You can also add other reactions, such as applause, if you think what was just said is commendable and it is worthy of applause. So be aware that you can have a reaction, and that reaction will simply float up through the screen. And so in the case of my students, I'll ask them, is everybody okay out there? Nobody's having any issues? And if I've got 6 students, I'll see 6 thumbs up rise up through my screen. If one of them is missing, then I'm wondering who's not okay. And usually it's the person who's raised their hand or has posted a question in the chat panel. In the same way as I mentioned, you should all have your mics turned off except for the meeting organizer or the speaker. The same thing goes for the camera. I would suggest that you all turn your cameras off if you have distractions going in the background. It may be a busy environment that you're in, and there may be people walking past or all sorts of distractions. So you can actually turn your camera off, and instead they'll see your initials or they'll see some sort of profile picture. Notice Control-Shift-O. Control-Shift-O turns on and turns off the camera. So turn off the camera if you're going to get up and move around, or you've got people coming and going in a busy workspace. Some people, to work around that or navigate around that, will add a video effect. And so for that, you can go to More, you can go to Effects and Avatars, and there are a variety of effects that you can add to your background. I might just ask for a standard blur so people can't make out maybe the signage that's around me. Or I may actually ask for some sort of room like in Zone 6 or Escape Artist 1, and there's even more. So there's all sorts of backgrounds that you can apply to yourself so that people aren't distracted, or just simply turn your camera off and turn it on when you want people to see you. So I'll close that. Now, one of the really important parts of a meeting is being able to share information with others. And so if I raise my hand and then I get to speak and I turn my microphone on and I say, look, I've got something I want to show you, then I would go for the share button. The 3 most important buttons, I believe, are sitting in front of the leave button. And so the share button, Control-Shift-E, turns on and turns off the sharing, allows you to share a variety of things. What you can do is share your screen. Now I have 2 showing here. Let me just move this over. Now I have 2 showing here because I have 2 screens. So I can choose, do I want to show my monitor or do I want to show my laptop? So I choose which screen I want to show. Or if I really just want to show a specific window, then this is telling me with the use of this number in brackets that I have 4 windows open, and I can click this and choose which of the 4 windows I would like to share. And whether I want to include my computer sound or not, you need to think, do I want them to see my computer sound, especially if it's a presentation in PowerPoint? You may want the sound to be heard or not. And I'll go back from window. Besides sharing a screen or a window, or you can share any PowerPoint files, any Excel files, or you can even browse your computer or browse OneDrive and share files with others in the meeting. So even if you need to practice prior to a meeting to get confident, you can do that. Let me just cancel or leave the meeting. Control-Shift-H. Now, if I want to practice, I'm just going to hit Meet Now. Go to your Teams, go to your calendar, and click your Meet Now button and start the meeting. and simply join now. Instead of doing any of these things like inviting other people, just close that. Now start practicing. Practice bringing up the chat. Practice sending messages. Practice reacting to messages. Practice closing the chat. Practice raising your hand. Practice lowering your hand. React with a thumbs up. Turn your camera off. Turn your mic off. Turn them back on again. Go into more. Go into effects and try some different effects and find one you like. And close. You really can't muck anything up, but I think it's super important that you practice being confident in a meeting before you're actually in a meeting with other people. Practice sharing. Practice sharing your screen and ultimately leave the meeting. Well, I do hope that helped, and I do hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my other videos, check out my other playlists. Please like or subscribe and let me know that what I'm creating, the content I'm creating, is resonating for you. My name is Kathy Barker from Software Solutions. It's been my absolute pleasure. Ka kite.